Hello, and welcome to The Only Sane Man by General Zero. Today, we will be reading Chapter 5, Aiding and Abetting, with no warnings. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy the chapter. Garthen did not get to hear Quill's grand plan when he and Rocket returned to the living room, because apparently they were running behind schedule. In the end, he was hustled out of the building without being able to change out of his uniform or grab anything other than the essentials he had already thrown together. Meds, weapon, 2 changes of ammunition, emergency medkit, or notify anyone of his absence. Quill explained from several feet away, and with a distinct wariness, that they really did want to make it look like Garthen had been kidnapped. So he had a defense in case anyone asked questions later. A precaution that had apparently been Day's idea, of course. Garthen and his gang may have been currently riding on a free pass as far as Xandarian justice was concerned, but there were many other planets outside the Xandarian Empire who were a little more hard-nosed. The group split up into 2 autocabs that headed out of the city by ground, probably towards the docks. Garthen made sure to slip into Quill's cab so he can get an answer out of him. What exactly are we doing that I need an alibi for it afterwards? Quill's voice was slightly distorted since he was holding a bloody freeze pack over his nose. Well, since Novacor can't retaliate against the Kree actions because the old treaty still rules, Day has... Garthen felt a knot materialize in his gut. What new problem was this? If a new Ronin had risen up in the old one's ashes... Wait, what have the Kree been doing? Drax next to Peter answered, Ronin supporters have been fighting amongst themselves for power, and setting up personal kingdoms in what is left of Ronin's territory, by using violence against the populace there. And why isn't Novacor stopping them? Dude, it's been all over the net, and the news. The Kree leadership have stated that the peace treaty Xandar signed before the battle with Ronin means that the land belongs to the Kree. Where have you been for the last cycle and a half? Garthen made sure to use a tone which would freeze pure nitrogen. In the hospital, most of the time. I didn't even wake up for half a cycle after the battle. Made it hard to keep up with current events. Getting kicked out of Novacor means I don't have access to intelligence reports anymore. Quill had the decency to look ashamed. There, you said you were retired, and you were a national hero. Why would they kick you out? Politics. It wasn't a strange lie. Or quite a lie at that. Strings could have been pulled to keep Garthen in Novacor, even with his disadvantages. But Nova Prime hadn't deigned to pull them. It stung, especially since Garthen had spent the last 8 months before the battle helping her with that damn treaty. And he thought they'd been close. Well, what's going on is that Day's been trying to get the Kree and Xandarian refugees out of the way since the, turf wars, without breaking the treaty. Garthen nodded. It sounded like Day. A good cause, and as Denarian, Day now had the resources to pull it off. Garthen wondered if Day had inadvertently slipped into Garthen's old role in the Novacor. Nova Prime always kept 1 or 2 Denarians without a battalion of their own, in order to better organize specialized missions and projects. Assignments in Novacor were incredibly fluid. Quill continued. We're involved because the Ronin supporters, God calls himself, Onchi? Onchi? I don't know. Onchi the Torch. Holed up on a moon out in the Quadrant 3, raining all sorts of hell on the Kree there. Apparently there's a resistance group on the moon that's been trying to overthrow Onchi, but the fight is so uneven that it's like rebels taking on the Death Star. What? Death Star? Another kind of weapon of mass destruction? This was not something to be talking so casually about. Quill sighed, like he was some kind of martyr. Forget the last part. They're really outnumbered is all. Novacor can't send help because of the treaty, so they suggested we look into it, which is his super secret spy code for go help the rebels kill Onchi. Garthen had a feeling that Day probably meant something closer to find an excuse for Novacor to legally intervene, but he doubted a criminal like Quill had thought of that. That doesn't explain why you need me. We found someone who claims to have vital information on Onchi, but they'll only give it to Novacor directly. They can't send the real McCoy because of the treaty, and we can't send a fake one because someone knows it's impossible to impersonate someone from Novacor. That was perfectly true. Counterfeit implants were extremely hard to come by, but even if a fraud could somehow get a real one, the Nova Force wouldn't respond to a stranger. It would respond to Garthen, retired or not, and I'm neither. Bingo. All you gotta do is talk to the guy, give us the info, and we'll take care of the rest. It's a cakewalk. Garthen couldn't see any glaring faults with the idea, which was surprising considering that Quill was the one behind it. He resisted the urge to ask Quill what they planned to do about Onchi. He wasn't going to involve himself, so he knew he shouldn't try to micromanage their plan. It was so similar to the kind of missions Garthen would have been running before the battle, and would still be running now if he was still an active Denarian. Novacore chose Denarians based on mental ability. To organize complex systems, a delicate mission, a battalion, a legal question, without losing track of the details. It required a puzzle-solving mind. He thoroughly enjoyed the position. Before Garthen had been promoted to Denarian, following the fiasco with Corel, he'd rarely been permitted to work independently or supervise more than a few corpsmen. Centurions, on the other hand, delegated quite a bit of favor on focusing on diplomacy. And Garthen was fairly sure that even with the position's increased access to the Nova Force, he wouldn't like it much. The mission itself, Garthen decided, probably wouldn't get him killed. Possibly it would even be enjoyable, since he'd be able to spend, time-space side. However, that didn't mean Garthen didn't plan on grilling Day when he got back. There remained, unfortunately, the question of how he was going to coexist with 5 idiotic criminals during that time. Rocket he could get along with. They'd known each other before the battle, and they'd established a stable pattern of mutual respect. Garthen had no idea about the others. Or rather, he had a very clear idea of the others. Gamora was dangerous and uncooperative. Drax was homicidal. Groot was just inexplicable altogether. And Peter Quill, a.k.a. Star-Lord, a.k.a. the most ridiculous thug in the quadrant, was immature and unpredictable. None of them were qualities Garthen was inclined to accommodate. Unfortunately, it didn't look like Garthen could do anything about it, short of refusing to come, and that option had turned out so beautifully the last time it was attempted. All right, I'll help you. But if we're going to be working together, there have to be rules. Quill's eyebrows jumped up to his hairline. Rules? We're kind of the go-with-the-flow group, actually. Do you want my help or not? Saul, you're not the one with the cards here. We just established that whether you do this willingly or not, there's 5 of us, and only 1 of you. You're doing it. We do not wish to hurt you, Denarian Saal. But there are no other retired corpsmen for us to kidnap, Drax added. How much do you know about the Nova Force, Quill? Garthen was walking a fine line here. Discussing the Nova Force with outsiders was incredibly illegal. But Garthen wasn't planning to reveal anything, so much as use the Nova Force's reputation to, bluff a little. It's like the Jedi Force, but less cool. The what? Quill was speaking standard, but half of what came out of his mouth was nonsense to Garthen. The Nova Force is a special source of telepathic aid for warriors of the Nova Corps to call on in times of distress, Drax said. Where did you hear that? Garthen asked quickly, shocked to hear such a clear, accurate description from a complete outsider. My wife's brother was married to a Millennian in the Nova Corps. One of the very few people on my home planet to find their partner off-world. Garthen hesitated a moment before deciding that a chatty Millennian wasn't a problem he could do anything about, and turned his attention back to intimidating Quill. Exactly. So if you're counting, it's actually 5 thugs on your side, and the entirety of Nova Corps on mine. We are not thugs, Drax countered. We are on the side of justice, just as you are. Quill blanched a little at that. Garthen noted, you do not need to fear violence from us. That's very reassuring, especially after you nearly killed me. It is good that you understand. Sarcasm was apparently lost on Drax the Destroyer, which was a pity, because next to his actual gun, it was Garthen's best weapon. The cab was slowing to a stop. Listen, can we talk about this later? We have a ship to steal here, and we're kind of behind schedule, Quill said, finally putting down his freeze pack and wiping stray blood off of his face with his sleeve. You're stealing a ship? What happened to the one you came in on? Nothing, the Milano's fine, and it's totally not stolen, by the way. Quill said this proudly, as if owning something that wasn't stolen was an accomplishment. He motioned out the window, and Garthen recognized that they had gone past the civilian docks and were parked outside the Nova Corps shipyard. Quill winked. Can't be a Corpsman without a Nova ship, can ya? We're stealing a Nova ship? Just as Garthen was wondering where the hell the "we" had come from, Quill shook his head vigorously. Oh no, not you. You're along for the job, that's all. Just stay in the cab and let us professionals work. If there was a single word in the galaxy that had not applied to the Guardians of the Galaxy, it was professional. Garthen let his skepticism soak into his tone. How do you plan to do this without getting killed or arrested? Trade secrets, can't tell you. Quill is halfway at the cab already. We are going to sneak in with the people who have come to gawk at the new craft they are unveiling today. I will incapacitate any resistance we meet, while Rocket and Peter acquire a ship and deactivate the anti-theft modifications. Drax said as he followed Peter. Garthen was not far behind. Damned if he was taking orders from a petty criminal. Wow, Drax, thanks, Quill said before making a shooting motion at Garthen. Gamora and Groot are gonna head back to the Milano in another cab. Can I trust you to catch a ride with them and not run away? Garthen gave Quill a look that unfortunately failed to turn him to stone, and remained by the cab as Drax and Quill approached the security gates. This was gonna be good. Garthen crossed his arms and leaned against the autocab dock. They'd be stopped before the whole thing even started. And then Garthen would be free to go and strangle Roman Day. Rocket showed up a second later, stuttering. Hey, the cab's waiting for you. Does Quill honestly think that no one's gonna recognize you and Drax? He couldn't possibly get away with pretending to be part of the press. Maybe he could, but definitely not you two. Garthen had waited to ask Rocket because Rocket was the only half-tolerable person in the whole gang, which was saying something. In this crowd, I'm 3 feet tall. Most of them won't even see me. Drax? Rocket shrugged. He's an idiot. It's Quill's plan. I'm starting to get a feeling about these plans of his. Rocket grinned, baring his teeth, before hurrying towards Quill and Drax, now at the gate, talking to the Nova Guards there. Don't start any trouble, old man, he called over his shoulder. I'm not the one about to commit a crime, hamster. A hand settled on his shoulder and Garthen jumped. It was Gamora, the silent assassin, getting the drop on him for the second time that day. Don't touch me, Garthen snapped. Rule number 1, don't touch me ever. Gamora quirked an eyebrow. Peter agreed to rules. He will if he knows what's good for him. We're supposed to take the cab back to the Milano. A shout from Drax erupted at the gate, and Garthen heard Gamora swear under her breath. It appeared that Quill's smooth talking had gone wrong. The guards at the gate were looking visibly antsy. Garthen frowned. He didn't want anyone getting shot, and he wasn't sure just how far Quill's incompetency extended into the social relations department. Bring Groot. Don't attract attention, he said to Gamora, trying to figure out a plan. He didn't wait for her to move. He strode through the crowd toward Quill and the security guards, consciously injecting each step with confidence. It was the kind of walk that suggested the one walking owned the ground and everything resting on it. An officer's walk. And Garthen knew for a fact that only Nova Prime did it better than he did, and that was because she could do it in high heels. When you didn't have a plan, the walk could sometimes do the trick by itself. Peter had both hands up in a consolatory gesture when Garthen arrived. I'm telling you, man, we're supposed to be... Neither the security officer nor Quill and his companions noticed Garthen's approach. But it didn't matter, because he immediately inserted himself into the middle of the conversation. Good to see you're not late. You have your security passes? Peter gaped a little, and then, miraculously, came up with the appropriate answer. No? Giving Garthen an excuse to look disapprovingly at the guard. What is the problem, Corpsman? The security glanced at Garthen's uniform, and her tone was properly respectful when she informed Garthen that all the security passes had already been checked out. Everyone who had permission to be here already was. Obviously not, Garthen said witheringly. You have a Denarian Saal in that database, don't you? The guard checked. Yes, but... Fine, then sort of have to mess with the others on your own time. We have somewhere to be. A moment later, the guard let him in, promising to send someone with passes as soon as she could. Gamora and Groot slipped into their little group at the last moment, and they all darted around the corner of the nearest hangar to stay out of sight. How come you are on our list if you're retired? Quill asked. I was here earlier on a private invitation, and we don't have much time before she figures that out. We don't have much time before that satellite's out of range, and our chances to get away clean go away. They go kaput, Rocket added. Satellite? Radar satellite up in orbit. We tacked an EMP on it coming down. I set it off when we break orbit. Anyway, they won't be able to see where we go. Result, they can't chase us. Those satellites have shielding to prevent exactly that from happening. Not if there's no power for shields. What did you do? Rocket shrugged. Blacked out the solar panels. Garthen frowned, torn between being impressed and being distressed. Then Novacore radar satellites were vulnerable to attack. If you two are done, we do need to steal a ship here. Garthen could not believe he had forgotten that. He helped them get in. He was an accomplice now. Stars help him. What was he getting into? What kind we talking? We got too many people to fit into a scout ship, since someone decided that they couldn't stay in the cab. Cruising, maybe? We'll take a look in the hangar. Gamora, can you make sure nobody gets shot while Rocket and I take a look around? Gamora nodded. You're leaving her in charge of nobody getting shot? Watch it, Denarian. Garthen's patience was wearing thin. And one day, he'd been insulted, kidnapped, had his flat overrun with outlaws, almost died, and now he was being press-ganged into stealing from Novacore. Watch yourself. I'm going to make sure they don't blow anything up. Now, Saul, I know you're excited to start with your criminal career and steal shit with us, but this is a two-man job. Garthen stepped closer to Quill. Garthen was an inch or two taller, and used it to his advantage. Your nose is crooked. Quill's left hand made an aborted movement towards his face, and the outlaw stepped back slightly. His friendly tone, which had not slipped all day, finally soured. Fine. You know, I get why they call you the Salt Pillar. They slipped in the back entrance, and Quill and Rocket poked around the hangar, staying far away from the crowd surrounding the admin. Garthen caught himself admiring it again. As he listened to Rocket turn down one ship after another, muttering about anti-theft mods and airlocks, an idea occurred to Garthen. No. It wasn't a good idea, he told himself firmly. Absolutely not. And yet, one way or another, a Nova ship was going to get stolen. And Garthen was, unfortunately, already aiding and abetting that theft. No use going about it halfway. Denarian Garthen Saal never did anything halfway. Not to mention the look on Carell's face, which would be priceless, even if Garthen didn't get to see it. Garthen allowed himself to smile, very briefly, at the thought, and then decided that he might possibly be able to forgive some of Day's new deviousness if this is what it felt like. I know which ship you need. Which one? That one. Garthen pointed out the admin. The destroyer? The one that had a brand new anti-theft mods that's surrounded by at least 60 people? Rocket hissed. Are you crazy? Destroyers are made for long deployments. They have room for a whole squadron, decent firepower, and can take more hits than a cruiser. This one's fast, and it's a brand new design, so unfriendly ships won't recognize it as Novacore immediately. Quill's eyes glittered as he inspected the admin from afar. It's a beautiful ship. Well, if Peter Quill was an incompetent criminal, at least he had good taste in ships. Garthen scanned the crowd at the base of the ship, looking for Valkyrie's bright green hair. It doesn't matter how pretty the damn thing is if we can't steal it, Rocket said. Garthen spotted Valkyrie. I should be able to help with that. Get the others. I'll leave the cargo door open for you. You might want to arrange for the evacuation alarms to go off. Rocket glanced at Quill, who nodded before moving. Quill followed Garthen towards the admin. What are you doing? Garthen asked. Oh, you know, making sure you don't get us arrested. Which was what Garthen should be doing. Garthen pushed the thought away as he came up to Valkyrie. When she saw him, she pulled herself away from the conversation she was in. Are you all right, dear? You left so abruptly earlier. Sorry, something came up. This is Peter Quill. The Peter Quill? Star-Lord? How exciting. Quill grinned. Garthen rolled his eyes. Don't make a scene. Quill, Alla Vakiri designed this ship. Just as gorgeous as you are, Quill winked. I'm sure she handles well, too. What's she called? The Adamantine. Garthen did not have any patience for Quill's flirting, or for Vakiri's encouragement. Alla, I need a favor. This is the end of Chapter 5, Aiding and Abetting. Thank you for listening, and we hoped you had a good time. This was The Only Sane Man by General Zero. Goodbye.